So today I'm going to teach you a very important lesson that every entrepreneur should know. It took me years and years to figure this out, and this lesson is so important that it can mean the difference between your company making it or your company failing. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the difference between somebody who's in corporate versus somebody who's an entrepreneur. You'd think that they're very similar, right? They're both in business, but you would be wrong, because working at a corporation, you have a whole different set of criteria in terms of motivation, in terms of what skill sets will allow you to rise versus the entrepreneur. In fact, in many ways, they are diametrically opposed to each other. That's why you see a lot of entrepreneurs, startup founders, when they start building their companies, a lot of them don't succeed in the corporate level because they're entrepreneurs. Very different mindset. Now, you have to understand the differences if you're going to be an entrepreneur, because if you ever find yourself wanting to sell into medium to large size businesses, you have to understand the motivations of the people who are there and the decision makers, the ethos of that lifestyle, if you will. In fact, I would argue that the entrepreneur mindset is a totally different mindset. It's a totally different worldview in many respects than somebody who works at a large corporation. They're so different, in fact, that the guy who owns the hot dog stand, or maybe a couple of hot dog stands in New York City, he's rolling around selling hot dogs, his psychology and his worldview are probably more aligned with Elon Musk and Steve Jobs than the CEOs of the big Wall Street banks that are operating in the area, or the big, insurance companies that are operating in the area. That's how different entrepreneurs are from corporate people. I'm not making a quality judgment here. It's just about psychology. Just like I used to do a lot of martial arts. I recognize that if you go to an MMA gym or a boxing gym, there's a certain demographic, psychological profile to people who are typically there. Whereas on the other hand, if you go to a yoga studio, you have a totally different group of people, right? Same thing with people who are attracted to go work at very large organizations, corporations, versus people who are attracted to smaller companies or who want to start small businesses. Very different mindset. So let's talk about people who go work for corporations. They are typically people who have gone to university, they have degrees, and they're used to processes. They're used to a framework being supplied to them, provided to them, and they're used to working within the context of that framework. In fact, one of the main reasons you get through university is because you comply and you execute the processes, the learning curriculum, the curriculum in the university, and you fill out the right paperwork, you do the exams, you get your credentials, and you move into the corporations. Same thing in corporations. In corporations, it's all about process. Process is sacrosanct. Process is queen, is king. Process rules the day. You must adhere to the edicts of the process, lest you be punished and damned to hell. So, process is important. It has to be established. It creates consistency within the organization, but it could also lead to problems down the road, especially when the underlying reality in which the process was developed upon changes. All of a sudden, the process falls apart. Anyway, the key point to understand is about people who go work for corporations. They are married to processes. They are married to standards. They don't like nonconformists. They love and embrace conformity. The entrepreneurs are the exact opposite. As an entrepreneur, you have to actually develop your own processes, right? You're starting a business from scratch. You got to figure out what the processes are. Number one, you got to figure out your product. You got to figure out your service that you're developing. You got to figure out your pricing. You got to figure out who you're selling to. You develop processes. But processes are just tools for the entrepreneur. They are not holy relics to be worshipped as they are in corporations. They are tools, and processes are only important as long as they serve the end. And the end is making profit. You see, as an entrepreneur, you don't have this huge war chest, this huge infrastructure to lean upon. And you don't have the pressures of the huge infrastructure, right? You can do what you want. But process is an important tool, and you have to develop processes and workflows in any business, that's for sure. But the processes have to serve the end. If the process does not get you to profitability, does not lead you to where you want to be, then the process is killed. You have to change the process modifier or kill it altogether. Entrepreneurs look at processes as tools. People who work at corporations, processes are everything. The bottom line, like the end result of a process I found in many corporations, is secondary, if even considered by most people. Most people don't even consider it because, and I don't blame them, because if you're a junior or middle level, even upper level management in a corporation, the bottom line is not directly impactful on you. Like a company could be doing horribly for many years before you finally feel the effects of that. But if you break process, if you break the edicts of the company, that can get you fired right away, get you demoted, get you into trouble right away. So the big rule to take away from this, as an entrepreneur looking to market into larger organizations, medium to large, organizations that have processes. It could be big corporations, especially government, schools. I've dealt with a lot of schools for 15 years. Process is sacrosanct. Process is king. And you can't break process. Why? Because if somebody working in a business breaks the process, right, and then they're going to get in big trouble. Unless breaking that process results in some crazy success, which is rare. So people who work in large corporations, they don't want to break process. Their bonuses, their ability to advance in the business, their salaries, or how people treat them in the organization has much more to do with how well they execute on process than the result of the process. Because the process is not them. They didn't invent the process. The employees of the corporation, they just execute the process. So their job is to execute the process as efficiently and as accurately as possible. If they do so, they're fine. So as an entrepreneur, if you are bringing to market a product that challenges or modifies processes that are well established within the organization, you're going to have a hard time selling that product. You're going to have a hard time selling that product, again, for all the reasons I just mentioned. They don't want to break process, because if they break process, they're risking things, right? Also, by their very nature, conformist, people who like frameworks and processes and groups, they don't like change. That's why they're there. People who don't conform, like a Steve Jobs or Elon Musk and so forth, these people, they don't do well in large organizations because they don't conform. They do their own thing. They invent their own thing. So yeah, you have to remember that. You're taking a product into the established organizations, large organizations that have processes. You have to understand that breaking process is a very, very big ask. It's a hard thing to overcome for all of the reasons I gave you and others. So when you're developing your product, you have to think about that. Is this product going to, am I asking for people to break processes? It's much easier if you're selling to established organizations that you have a technology or a service that does not break current processes and workflows. Enhances it maybe. Maybe you're introducing new products that they couldn't even do before. That's a better opportunity for you. So I was talking to somebody recently in my mentoring group, and they have this piece of software. And it targets medium to large organizations. Well, small to mediums, but well-established organizations that have frameworks and processes, very old business. But there's some flexibility there because you get some small ones. So they're spoiled for choice, meaning there's many potential clients. So they're asking me, what should we do? Should we go knock on the doors of 200 companies? I said, well, their product was looking to modify key processes that could bring in a lot of efficiencies. But as I said, a very established, profitable company that has management in place for a while, it's a big ask to get them to update what works, right? There's an expression: if it isn't broke, don't fix it. So what I suggested that they do in this situation is find companies in that industry. I'm trying to avoid talking about what they're doing. Well, I can say it's car industry. I say find dealerships that have maybe been recently bought by new owners. They will likely be more open to change because they just bought in the last year or two. So things are new, they just bought something new, they're in this new location. There's a higher probability that they would be open to something new to throw into the mix to make their businesses more profitable. But you have a business, the same owners for 5, 10, 15 years, and they're making money and they're turning over. There's no incentive for them to interrupt their processes. You're going to have a hard time. So how does this impact? Maybe you're a corporate person and you're looking at going out there and being an entrepreneur. Well, one of the biggest shocks to you is that you're not going to have a framework. You're not going to have all these workflows and processes in place. You're going to be deeply impacted by what you do right away. Like, in a corporation, you can implement a product and it doesn't work out. Okay, you don't get a raise this year, but you're still making your pay and you got your money. But as an entrepreneur, funds are typically tight. You got to move quick. You got to be willing to break things quick. One of the best attributes of successful entrepreneurs is they're willing to admit they're wrong. They're willing to destroy any idea or product idea that they have. They're willing to throw it in the garbage when they see that it's not actually viable as a product. You can't fall in love with the product or service that you're pushing. As an entrepreneur, you have to keep pivoting quick until you see the market pull you in a direction. That's why a lot of well-established businesses, they have a hard time shifting from their established business to the new because they're making money here. They've been making money here for years and years and years. And to shift out of that, it's hard, right? Because they're kind of used to it and they don't want to risk the old business by jumping into the new. So, for example, late night TV, it's as I'm recording this, it's either last day of July or August 1st, 2025. So these late night TV shows, one big one got fired. It looks like the other two may go. And it's very political, blah, blah, blah. But politics are not the point. The reason they're getting fired is because that whole business model, the late night TV show, is a boomer model. The audience for network news, cable news and late night TV talk shows, that's like for boomers, right? The younger generation, millennials, Gen Z, they don't watch these shows for the most part. They're on YouTube, right? They're on the TikTok, Instagram. So the corporate people who own and run these shows, they kept them going for years, even though they were losing tons of money. But eventually it just got so bad. Like one, I think, was losing $40 million a year. It's got to go. It's got to go. Now, see, you can suffer that if you're a big, large corporation and you're generating $1 billion a year in revenue. You can suffer, I guess, for a few years losing $40 million. And it's kind of like a sunken cost fallacy where you go, well, this thing has been around for so long, we put so much money into it, maybe we could turn it around in the next couple of years. So you do it. But eventually you have to cut the cord. Now, with entrepreneurs, you have to do this very quickly. They say in the venture capital world, fail fast, fail fast. You don't want to burn money on some bad product or service that's never going to be successful. There's a difference in the mindset between the entrepreneur and the corporate person. This difference in mindset explains why it's rare that you see big corporations come up with the new cutting edge invention. Because it takes a nonconformist free thinker to do that. So what the big corporations, the smart ones do, like Meta has done, Apple has done, Microsoft has done several times, is they buy up the nimble, fast startup with the entrepreneurial people involved. Because they know within the organization that you're not going to get that. And again, it's not necessarily because the people, they're not dumb. Actually, I know a lot of people who are in corporate are smart. but they're not, they would say chaotic. They would say they are not chaotic. I would say they are not inventive. They are not free thinkers. They are not built to be nonconformists. They are not built to break molds. They are not, as they like to say in the corporate world, they don't like thinking outside of the box. They live in the box. They don't even know they're in a box because the box is so thick and small and it's dark. They don't know that they're actually in a box, but they're in a box, and it's very difficult. It's a deep psychological issue, hard to get out of it. So that's why big corporations, when they have this whole thing, this infrastructure, where they've hired all these people who are really good at what they do because they're conformist, they understand process, they believe in process, they love well, they may not love it, but they have this core emotional, visceral affection towards process. I can't find a better word than affection, but you understand. Whereas entrepreneurs is the opposite. So if you want to invent new products, if I was like the head of Apple, who's a great process guy, not an entrepreneur, it's not a coincidence that when Steve Jobs died, the entrepreneur, that we haven't seen any new major innovations in Apple since he died. Like, they're just working off the product line that he left them. They've made them better and more efficient. It's a great, I have the iPad, I have a laptop from Apple, I got their desktop, I got their monitor. I'm a big Apple purchaser, great product. But they haven't really invented the folding phone that comes from Samsung, big corporation, but they're a little bit more mobile, if you will, pun intended. And you see all these new inventions coming from small little startups. So if I was Apple, or as Trump says, Tim Apple, if Tim Apple should, I would suggest, be looking to buy up startups. 100 million there, 500 million, they got all kinds of money, 50 million there. And don't integrate them with an Apple. Keep them separate. Just fund them and let them go. Because if you bring them into the organization, you're going to kill them. You're going to kill the creativity because they're going to be crushed under the weight of the processes at Apple, which are necessary, but counterproductive in the context of wanting to develop new products. Anyway, I could go on for hours. I'll stop here. So let me know what you think about this video. The rules to take away is that if you're developing a product, understand to break process in established businesses is difficult. So you got to modify existing process. You got to find out what the stakeholders are in the company. Stakeholder just means the person who makes the decisions. And you got to find what their motivations are. And then make sure that your product or service satisfies their motivations. Bottom line is not too important to them a lot of the times, unless they're in the sales. That's another story. But anyway, there you go. And if you are a corporate person looking to become an entrepreneur, understand you're going to have to look at processes not as holy Bibles, what's the word I look at? Scriptures. They're not the unbreakable word of the higher beings. The processes are tools. And tools that are only useful so long as they are useful. As soon as the process starts getting in the way of achieving your end result as an entrepreneur, these processes have to be modified or trashed. Yeah, there you go. That's the story. I hope this is useful. I'm Uncle Steph. I've been in business since 1990 or 89, something like that. And small business owner, many small businesses. Some successful, not so successful. Some in tech, some outside of tech. And I just share my stories here. I've been mentoring people for years. All right. If you want to learn more about what I do, check out UncleSteph.com.